This is music, and this is Bathuary. Welcome to a new mini series on this channel. We call it Bathuary. It's going to run in January and February, and yes, the theme is Bathory. A while ago, I acquired the pretty much the entire discography on cassette tape, the Black on Black reissues. Um, haven't had the time to listen to any of those tapes yet, but I figured now is the time. So I figure it would be fun to unseal them on camera, listen to them, and then come back and talk about my impressions. So we're going to have a look at the uh, self-titled here. I don't know if I'm going to go through them in chronological order or just randomly. We'll see. Uh, it's a band I never really explored, although they are really important to the history of extreme metal, black metal, um, and thrash metal and Viking metal. Uh, I did hear a couple of songs back in the day, but I just wasn't ready. So I never really got back to them. But now is the time. So I'm going to unseal this one. We will have a look at it and then I'll listen to it and then I'll come back to you at some point with my first impressions of it. Of course, to you, it's going to be just, I guess, a second from when I've unsealed it. So let us unseal this. There you go. It's out of the cellophane. I really like this simple goat face here. Not the longest album, as you can see. Not a lot of tape here. But I think it is an album. So the J card, pretty simple J card here. Maybe they are all simple like this. You do have the lyrics and all that stuff. So there you go. That's what it looks like. Now I am going to listen to it and I'm going to get back to you with my first impressions of it. So don't go anywhere. All right, I am back. I have now given this one a listen. This is actually the following day. I decided to listen to this while going out for a walk. So I listened to it on my We Are Rewind portable cassette player. By the way, I'm not going to talk about any background information or context or history pertaining to the release or to the artist or anything like that, because I've done zero research. Because with the music that I'm exploring, I prefer jumping right into the music first and then looking into the band and stuff afterwards. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll just talk about the music. Now, in this one here, we're dealing with filthy, dirty speed metal, thrash speed metal, but it sounds quite speed metally to me. And it's quite similar to what people nowadays call blackened speed metal. So obviously those bands took a cue from Bathory, at least this one here. Uh, Starts out with a long atmospheric introduction with the sound of the howling wind and the church bells and all sorts of things. And then it kicks into a fast speed metal song, which is not as primitive as I expected it to be. I think the two first songs are there's a little bit more going on in the riffage and like a little bit of variation in the songs, but it is still super fast and nasty and filthy fun. Really like those two first songs. And I like the whole album here. I think is absolutely awesome. Most of the songs are a little bit more primitive. They're very punky too, and some of them are quite repetitive. That they have like the same couple of riffs repeated, but it works very well with this, super fast, aggressive, filthy, dark music. You have a couple of mid-tempo songs too, like Necromancy and Raise the Dead. both of which kind of revolve around some pretty cool riffs, I would say. The one in Necromancy is a little bit more complex than the one in Raise the Dead. And what's interesting about Necromancy is that one is actually quite repetitive. You have the same riff repeated for a long time, and then you got a couple of other riffs, but it's quite repetitive, kind of even. But then when they do change things up, it strikes you. You go, "Wow, that's cool." So I quite like that. I quite appreciate that about those two more mid-paced songs. Then you have songs like Sacrifice and In Conspiracy with Satan and pretty much the rest of this album. It's just super fast, punky, primitive songs. I do get a little bit of a similar vibe from this as from Hellhammer and early Celtic Frost. They sound quite different, but you have that kind of punky attitude which they have in common. And yeah, really enjoyed it. The vocals are kind of screechy, but not like what you hear in a lot of black metal today. It does sound like Abath took a lot of inspiration from Quartons. It is Quartons vocals, right? On this album here. But the vocals also sound a little bit like Steve Zetro, Scott Waters like, kind of like a combination of that style of singing and Abath. So I think that's actually really interesting. I think some people might find the vocals grating, but I kind of think they fit this nasty, filthy, super fun, fast, dirty type of speed metal. The production is not lo-fi, but it's borderline lo-fi. It's certainly not crisp. It's certainly not overproduced. It's quite raw. The bass is quite loud, actually. The guitar, not so much. The drums, not loud enough, but whatever. Bass is so loud that you can hear that sometimes they've opted to use some notes on the bass that, if you look at it through the perspective of music theory, actually shouldn't be there. But they use them because they probably don't give a shit about that. And it works very well because it creates some like tension and dissonance and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually had a blast with this one. I really enjoyed this one. Glad I am finally checking out Bathory. This one is good fun. Absolutely dig it. So thanks for watching.